Welcome back. This is History 1122, second half of Western Civ. We talked a little bit about the scientific revolution last time. I want to talk about the Enlightenment today. And we'll break this up into a couple of lectures. This is a big topic. And of course, as a teacher, it's always challenging to figure out what to leave out. This is a survey course. So there's endless detail, and you really have to be discriminating and figuring out what to discuss and what not to. So let's start with the Enlightenment. Let's start with context. What we have here is a transition in European epistemology. Epistemology is a $10 word. It's from the Greek. Ology, the suffix, it means the study of. And then epistemene is also from the Greek, pertains to knowledge. So epistemology is the study of knowledge, or how do we know things. So we're having a sort of a revolution in European mentality. How do they know the world here in the 17th and 18th centuries? This new way of knowing the world is going to have a dramatic impact across the gamut of human endeavor, religion, philosophy, government, science, technology, commerce, geography, you name it. You almost can think of this as sort of a natural continuation of the Renaissance, a sort of flowering of human ingenuity, intellect, curiosity. Significances. Well, there's a number of significances. First, I think the Enlightenment changes the relationship between the ruler and the ruled, that is, between the monarch and his people. The Enlightenment challenged the divine right of kings, that notion that the monarch is a divinely appointed figure as part of the natural order of things. God rules the heavens and the king rules the kingdom. The divine right of kings is going to be directly challenged here. The Enlightenment thinkers are going to challenge the traditional authorities. The church and the monarch. It's going to challenge the privileges of those feudal institutions, those privileged orders, the church and the nobility. The Enlightenment is going to break the stranglehold that the Catholic Church had long held over the minds of man, at least in Europe. It's going to open up endless possibilities, technical possibilities, inventions. Remember that the exploration of the world is taking place at the same time, and colonies are being established across the Western Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. You're going to see another significance here. You're going to see reason, human rationality, sort of push, at least begin the process of pushing superstition aside. Substituting reason for superstition, substituting rationality and human intellect for traditional ways of knowing. Again, epistemology, a revolution in how we know things. Other significances for the Enlightenment. There's this notion in the Enlightenment that humanity is capable of recognizing and then solving its own problems. That our lot is not merely to endure this mortal coil, but to progress and to live full lives here and not simply wait for the hereafter. Another significance, and I don't want to get too abstract here, but this Enlightenment challenge to the traditional sources of authority, the church, the nobility. This challenge is, it gets down to something pretty basic, and that is, who has the authority and knowledge to reveal the truth? Who knows? The traditional source of authority, of course, was the church, and this is going to be increasingly challenged. I thought I would just take a moment and talk about the pre-Enlightenment cosmology, so you have a before and after, something to contrast the Enlightenment with. So I'm just going to mention a couple of things here that sort of characterizes the pre-Enlightened world. Of course, the earth was the center of the universe in the pre-enlightened world. Copernicus and Galileo disproved that as we move from a geocentric universe, an earth-centered system, to a heliocentric system, a star-centered or sun-centered. There's this notion in the pre-enlightenment world that all of creation is for man. The animals are placed here to serve us. The plant life is here to serve us. The Enlightenment is going to demonstrate that perhaps man is merely one species among many and not special. Of course, the pre-enlightened world, there were only 3 continents: Africa, Asia, and Europe. This will rapidly change after 1492 when Columbus accidentally bumps into the Western Hemisphere. And then in the generations just after Columbus, you see the European explorers discovering the rest of the world, the Southern Hemisphere especially. The pre-enlightened world, monsters abound. These monsters usually are in Asia or in Africa, places far from Europe. You can see the belief in these abominations, these creatures. You can see them in Marco Polo's book. There are depictions of human freak shows. Sir John Mandeville that we talked about. Also, you see he encountered human monstrosities. The European audience expected this, and these authors gave it to them. In the pre-enlightened world, the earth is very young. I can't remember I believe it was a Scottish pastor. I think his name was Usher. I should know this, and I can't remember his first name. I think his last name was Usher. He actually calculated the age of the earth. What he did, he went to Genesis, and he looked at the generations of the Bible. And you guys have all seen this, whereby so-and-so begot, so-and-so begot, so-and-so begot, and he goes on and on and on and on and on. And Usher took these generations of the Bible, and he assigned a lifespan to them, and then added it all up and came up with, I believe it was 4004 BCE. And this was regarded as fairly authoritative. But again, look at the source, look at the authority upon which these calculations are made. It's made from ancient Hebrew scripture. We'll find, of course, in the 19th and 20th century, that these type of calculations are simply nonsense. So this is part of the pre-enlightened world. Of course, you have witchcraft in the pre-enlightened world. Superstition abounds. Of course, superstition still abounds, doesn't it? People still check their horoscopes and have their palms read. Dreams are still interpreted. I saw the inventory of a London pharmacy in 1618. Again, a pre-enlightened world here, or the world of medicine. Here are some of the items: bile, blood, claws of various creatures, coxcomb, that's the red crest on a rooster's head, varieties of fur, sweat, saliva, scorpions. I've heard the scorpion's tail you could use as a sewing needle. Snakeskin, wood lice, spider webs. Some spider webs you can use to bind a wound. You can actually wrap the web around a cut and it'll pull the tissue back together. And of course, bloodletting with leeches. So this is 1618. Who was alive that you would know? Galileo, Shakespeare. We've come a long way with regard to drugs and medicine. Superstitions, astrology, numerology, palm reading, I just mentioned, witches, goblins, ghosts, demons, these things were taken for granted in many places. Exorcisms, oracles, miracles. So this world of superstition is now going to be challenged by a world of reason. Let's stop there, and we'll pick this discussion up again in our next lecture. We'll probably spend 3 lectures total on the Enlightenment. See you next time.